Hey, Dusty, good to see you. For some of the players, it might have been a little too early to talk about what the identity of this team may be, but you were the one who put it together. And now that you've seen it together, what do you see it as?
We haven't had our full group together, except for just a few days, so it's still hard to envision. Obviously, we plan and we believe it's going to look one way, but also our job as coaches is to figure out the best way. So not much has changed with what we foresee. We're excited to have a full group back together in the fall and really start working more. We're still in an experimental phase, evaluation phase, and learning each other. And so now, once we get back for school, things will ramp up as far as intensity and things like that.
Chris?
A lot of the guys were talking about LJ and the impact, obviously, he's had early just in practice and being around the guys. Can you just talk about what you've seen from him?
Yeah, he's been a real pleasant surprise. Obviously, we thought he's a really good player. We signed him at FAU, and we had really good players there, so we thought he fit in. He shot the ball really, really well. He's been extremely competitive. He's been very, very coachable. And he looks like someone that physically is going to be ready to contribute. We need really everyone on our roster to be ready to go, but he's been a little further along than we anticipated. He had a great high school coach. He comes from a really strong travel team, AU program. So, but yeah, he's been really good, as has Pippen and Brooks. Those guys, Brooks missed the early part of the summer with the knee injury, and immediately upon return, you could feel his presence in practice with his defensive acumen. And then Justin Pippen, he's missed a good portion of the summer too with a minor injury, but he's a poised, steady player for a freshman. So those guys are all going to have opportunities to fight their way into the rotation. But obviously, the success of our season will lean heavily on the veterans.
Andrew?
You may have just answered it. I was going to ask why the whole group hasn't been together. Is it, in little
Minor injuries, academics, guys finishing school on different schedules, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's very common. There's, other schools, your players might be on the national teams, they might be here. It's really difficult to get a group together in the summer. It's been that way every year for us. Last year we had a couple guys trying the NBA draft. We had guys, for a number of reasons. So it's good though, because it allows some of the other players to have a bigger role, more reps, more touches, things like that. So it's not all bad, but from a coaching perspective, it would be nice to be tweaking with lineups and combinations a little more. We have plenty of time.
But the roster, that was recently put out, I think 15 guys. That's the group that you're going into this season with, or?
You're telling me we are, or you're asking?
I'm asking.
Yeah, we still have feelers out, but
okay.
It would have to be something, I guess, out of the ordinary to bring someone in this late. You never rule anything out. But yeah, we feel pretty good about this group with the mix of young guys and old guys. They've been fun to coach, though. I'll say that with certainty.
When you have a team with this much turnover, or roster turnover, that is, the past precedent has said that the team will struggle early on. Is that something you envision? And if not, what's your plan to kind of, divert from those expectations of a little bit of early season gelling?
Well, hopefully, with so much turnover everywhere, that everyone struggle a little bit early, and teams aren't a finished product. You're going to struggle at some point during the season. There's been national champions in the last couple of years that had real rough patches in January, and usually the teams that can battle through that and in the face of adversity get better and improve. So we're not really going into it worried about not gelling right away. It's just let's be a little bit better. Let's try to anticipate what our issues, our problems are going to be, and plug those gaps before they happen if we can. But also we'll be in evaluation mode for a while, with combinations, with how we play, with sets and styles and whatnot. So I don't think we'll be past the evaluation stage until November, December.
Yeah, and he said he thought he surprised some people with his lateral quickness and his defense. As you kind of caught your eye a little bit, some of his improvement there.
Yeah, when we, we've made a lot of, there's been a lot of, I guess, information out about recruiting the portal, and you have to make quick, decisive decisions. And we went back and watched him after he had signed, just with it from a different lens. Before you're trying to decide, does he fit here? And then after that, then you're trying to decide, what do you really, really have? And you're watching the high major games, you're watching the biggest games, the conference tournament championship, things like that, whatever. And we always thought he had really good lateral quickness. We thought he was more physical than people gave him credit for. And so in the recruiting process, people were I guess, killing us that how are you going to play him at the 4? And we were very confident that he could guard 4s in the Big Ten because of his ability to move, and obviously being 7 foot helps. But yeah, he's done a good job of guarding the basketball.
So, John Sanderson had been a long-time strength and conditioning coach here, obviously a lot of success, and now you move toward Matt Aldred. Now that you've had him around for some time, how is it you landed on him? Obviously Furman is not exactly at the top, and how'd you find him? Why was it that you landed?
He was
on him?
an assistant when I was an assistant at Florida, and so I watched him work. I knew the program that Preston Green had developed, and when you say Furman wasn't, if a team is in a lower level league, but they happen to beat the teams at a higher level league, I wouldn't really say that they're not that. They're not at a historical land-grant university that is a part of the Power 5 conferences, but if you look at their players, the way they move, their bodies, their injury prevention, I would say Matt's been a high major strength coach before this summer.
What are your thoughts on revenue sharing coming next year? And then also, you guys could potentially use 15 scholarships. Some coaches have said that they don't want to do that. It's hard to get guys to want to have that many guys on a roster they could play. They want playing time. Kind of your thoughts on those?
Our sport's a meritocracy where if you're self-aware, then you realize when you should be playing and when you shouldn't. And we welcome having a couple more spots. It allows you to take potentially a developmental player, someone that might take a year or two longer than you would sign otherwise. I like it because we love the developmental part. We love working with guys. We enjoy having players in our program. And not everyone's a star player. Not everyone's the quarterback for Sharon, for Coach Moore. Not everyone is the starting pitcher, and not everyone. Yeah, so, that's part of being we're in team sports. So we welcome having more talented players for long-term development and short-term development as well. So we're excited to add a couple spots. And as far as revenue sharing, I'm all for it. There's a lot of revenue generated by certain sports, and those players deserve to be compensated accordingly, in my opinion.
You obviously recruited a lot of shooters. Are they living up to their billing? Is showing me what you hope to see from them?
We have a very skilled, big skilled team, and we've shot the ball pretty well. We've tried to, just in the last few weeks, pick up our tempo and our pace. So we're working through that fatigue. The shooting, when we're not tired, we shoot really well. And as we've gotten into playing more up and down, we haven't shot it quite as well, so we're just trying to expedite the process a little bit. But that's one area that I don't think we'll struggle with is making open shots. And so we'll have to improve as far as our cutting, our screening, our off-ball movement, so we can generate really good looks. But that's, I would think going forward, that's going to be a strength of this team.
I feel like every new coach says we're going to play fast. No one says we're going to come in and walk the ball up the court. But it seems like you really do mean it. You want the tempo to be at a certain level. Is that accurate?
Our goal is for the defense to never stop and get set, to continue to put pressure as early and often. And I'm perfectly content with giving up control to our players on game night. Now we have to be trained to play like that. We have to be committed to it. It's a responsibility for all 5 players on the court to play unselfishly, to get the ball out of their hands, to get it moving. And so we have a long way to go, but we have made progress in that area. And it also takes a great deal of conditioning, of mental and physical toughness to play the way we want to play. And so that's another area that we have to continue to improve at. And you're never going to be there in August or September, but we need to be in tip-top shape in November and to play at the pace that we want to play at, and we think it's difficult to go against.
Dustin, I know you had a hand in creating this schedule. What about the schedule you put together reflects what you want in year one?
We want that block M to be on national television in the biggest games as frequently as we can, and we want to recruit players that want to play in these games. And so when you look at our schedule, I don't think the metrics are out because most schedules aren't released, but I would be shocked if we don't have one of the most competitive schedules in the U.S., and that was intentional. We want to play in the biggest games. We do believe that if we play a very challenging pre-conference schedule, then we'll be more prepared once conference play begins, because you have to be able to go on the road and win in tough environments. You have to be able to travel and play on a short window, a short week, or a long week, whatever the case. So the pre-conference has to, number one, prepare you for your conference play and in postseason, but more importantly, like we wanted to play in the Jimmy V's, we wanted to play in these big-time games and classics and whatnot, because we're recruiting guys that, they're excited for the challenges.
You mentioned conference play. We talked with Ronnie Gale Jr. earlier, and he mentioned how his experience in the Big Ten is helping him teach others on the team. What has your kind of education been for these players on the Big Ten, being that you haven't had as much experience there?
Well, the mental toughness part, when you go on the road and you're facing the coaches, the talent, and the environments they're going to face, we can't get distracted because of a call. We can't get distracted because of your teammate missed you. There has to be a high level of maturity, mental toughness, and the ability to move on to the next thing. And the one thing that's been a very common theme of any time someone's asked for a foul that hasn't been called in practice, we simply remind them that we play in the Big Ten. So that's a regular just about every drill, every segment. We're reminded that we have to play the physicality because of the league we're in.
It went in and out. It'll come back. Chris?
On the recruiting trail, Coach, how have you been received? It seems like you're in on a lot of guys, and what percentage of guys are really listening to the message rather than just looking for a bag type of thing?
The most of the guys we're recruiting, it's almost all the message and the situation and life after basketball. And then if it's the way we've done it this fall, the bag part, the name, image, and likeness piece hasn't came up very often because the guys we're recruiting are going to get that no matter where they go. Now there'll be different amounts, but I would say most of them are going to get a ballpark figure, and if that number's not something that other certain schools are comfortable with, then they just go in another direction. But with the guys we're recruiting, it's fit, it's situation, it's style of play, it's life after hoops, it's the relationships, the culture, things like that. So we've been very well received. Now recruiting's not it's not a game you want to fit. You get the silver medal or the bronze medal, and you need to be gold or nothing. So we'll see. But like I've said repeatedly, it's not as if there's enormous pressure on signing high school players. If you miss on them, it might be a blessing in disguise, because now you can go find guys who are established and proven that they've done it. We just prefer the high school route more.
So, came back. I guess something you were saying earlier made me think about close games. The past couple of years here, I don't know exactly, something like 1-12, 1-13 in one possession games, just not on the right side of it. What is your mentality or philosophy around close games, and how do you come out not 1-13?
3 years ago we were that, and then the next year we flipped it. And typically you would assume that you're playing like opponents and you're in a one possession game, you're probably going to win half of them. So you 1-12, 1-13, whatever it was. I don't know the exact. I didn't look at those situations, but it could be a timely free throw, it could be fouling a three-point shooter. It could be there's so much that goes into winning and losing on that last possession. But I do think guys that come from winning programs, they know how difficult, how important every possession is, how difficult it is to win, and experience usually keeps you from making those mistakes. So for us, it was just simply, we had players that had never been in those situations and didn't believe we were going to find a way to win. To the following year of after we got that first one, it was more of a mindset of, okay, we're going to win this. We don't know how yet, but we're going to find a way. And I do think that there's that belief from being in the situation before. So we do have guys that have been in some big moments, and usually you're more comfortable with that experience.
But when you're in it, and I guess early on, it can be kind of self-defeating, maybe in sometimes, like when you lose that first one in a close.
It's for some, it's the glass is half empty, or the glass is half full, or for your engineer mind, why is the glass twice as big as it used to be? And so, if we're really close and we're losing, then we're probably going to be encouraged that we're right there, and we don't have a long way to go to get over the hump. If we're winning those games, then our message is going to be we're putting ourselves in a tight situation too frequently, and we need to find a way to create a little more separation before that last play that can go any which way.
Yeah. Has anyone stepped up as a leader in the locker room with a team with a bunch of new guys? Have the Will Cheddar, Noir Burnett, Jace Howard, have those people stepped up in the locker room more? Or is it more of kind of like is still coming together?
It's hard to say now, and with our team, leadership's open to everyone, but the one thing that is required is the actions behind the words. Those guys that you mentioned, they've all put a lot of actions behind the words. Our locker room, I think administration, we're renovating our locker room, our space that we, community space with our team and the women's program and all that, it's all brand new. So we're in transition now, so we're not in the locker room, we're not around those guys except at the practice court and the offices. But we have guys that have worked this summer with great attitudes, they've led by example. So I do think we'll have several guys emerge as leaders, and that's something that we're not going to sign captains, and I think those things typically emerge organically over time based on usually actions and behaviors more than words.
You talked about the, sorry.
Go ahead.
You talked about the freshmen a little bit. I mean, do you expect any of them to contribute, like, in games this season? Or?
It's so hard to based on their summer performance, they all could impact the game. Injuries, situations, it's very, very difficult, and I think the stat last year, and you guys can research it or just take it, I took it from someone else, but I think on the Elite Eight, there was maybe one freshman starter, so you have 16 teams, 16 times 5, 80 players, so 79 out of the 80 weren't freshmen for the best teams. So typically now, if you're a freshman and you're playing a lot, you're either with a lot of veterans or you're on a team that's not winning and you're building towards something later. But I would be very, very comfortable if those guys earned the minutes and were in the rotation because they all bring something really unique to the game. But am I going to sit here and say now that any of those freshmen are going to be in the rotation? There's too much time between now and first and the opening night to make those decisions.
How much different in style defensively should we expect this team to be than maybe some of your recent FAU teams?
We thought it would be polar opposites as we've evaluated our group, and like I said, we're still trying to figure out the best way for us to play on both sides of the ball. We've moved a little closer to how we played in the past with our positioning, with our off-ball rules and whatnot. So I'd say it'd be similar, but it won't be identical. Just our makeup's different, but the size allows us to play a little bit differently than our speed did at FAU.
Mike Boynton sort of leading that charge. Is he the defensive?
He is. He was hired to run our defense. And he works with Justin Joyner and Kyle Church. Those guys oversee the defense. They work together. That's kind of their position group. And those guys have all three had orchestrated really, really successful defenses at the college level.
Anybody have anything else?
You said when you first assembled your staff, it was like you guys have been together for a long time. How has that developed?
Even better than it was then. It's a group that has a very, very low individual ego and a high team ego. They work well together. It's not, I don't take it for granted, it's not always common to have a group that really, really works to support our players and do it together and realize that anything that we all get is going to be because of our cumulative success as a group. And those guys, they model it every single day. They walk the walk, and that's a good starting point for your team when they see a staff doing it every single day.
And have you ever been in the big house for a football game?
Not yet. Can't wait.
Andrew, you want to close us out?
Dusty, with so many new guys, are you pushing, off-court stuff? Like, is that on the schedule, same as practice? Getting together for dinners and stuff like that, or is it just happening on its own?
Both. We've had several dinners. NBA playoffs, we're having the guys together frequently. We after practices, we have a training table. We sit down and try to eat with them. The Olympics are on. The last couple weeks, though, we haven't done as many organized functions, but the guys have been getting together for each other's birthdays. They've been spending time off the court together. And it's been different groups. It's not like this group is with them and whatnot. It's been a good mix of guys. We haven't done a lot of organized stuff yet just because we didn't feel like we're ready for those things yet as a group. There's not, the trust isn't there for us to really get some of the things on the table that we need to be our best. But yeah, we'll do some fun activities. But every single day, you should be developing and working on your culture. How we interact with each other in practice, in the weight room, those things contribute to it. And then the dinners and that should just be more of just enjoying each other's company and spending time.
All right, Coach.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.